Before we get into today's episode, we want to take a moment to acknowledge the weight of what we're discussing. This episode of Q Points explores real criminal cases involving artists from hip hop history that include murder, violence, substance use, and crimes against a minor. While our focus remains on the cultural and historical context of these stories, the details are graphic and disturbing in places. If topics are difficult for you, please take care of yourself first. You can always come back to this show when you're ready, or not at all. We appreciate you listening, and we do not take these stories lightly. Now, let's get into it.
Greetings and welcome to another episode of Q Points Podcast. I am DJ Sir Daniel.
And my name is J. Ray, sometimes known by my government as Johnny Ray Cornegay III. And Sir Daniel, hip hop talks a lot about law enforcement and how it impacts people and communities. And we have a number of examples of rappers who have ended up in prison for murder in that list.
Absolutely. You know, the thing about rappers and some rap music, um, uh, aside from Chuck D coining it as the rap music as like the CNN, that's not a specific a direct quote, but likening rap music to being the 24/7 news network of the community, right? Like you always know about what's going on in the hood, and a lot of rappers talk about street justice and handling things on their own. Some of it is fictitious, and some of them are really about that life. And unfortunately, when the rhymes come to life, real life comes into play and law enforcement is involved, and sometimes that can parlay into real life consequences. And automatically right off the bat, J. Ray, the biggest example of that I thought of as we were getting ready for this episode was Snoop Dogg early in his career. Like when really taking off and about to launch his solo album off of the success of being a part of The Chronic. In 1993, Snoop Dogg was charged with murder along with his bodyguard. And that trial, that case took about 3 years to reach a conclusion. And in February 20th of 1996, Snoop Dogg and his bodyguard were acquitted of murder charges, and the jury found just ruled that it was self-defense. But this was again in regards to the 1993 shooting death of a Philip Waldemariam. And I will never forget the visuals back then, kids. MTV, breaking news. It was either
Kurt
John
Loder.
Norris or Kurt Loder that broke the news of Snoop Dogg being acquitted of these charges. And I'll never forget the footage of him in court, hearing the verdict and folding into his praying hands, and his legal team hugging him and surrounding him, and he's just clasping his hands in prayer and just being really thankful that he was not a guilty charge, because if that had happened, the Snoop Dogg that we have today probably would not exist. Oh, not probably, would definitely not have existed. But J. Ray, some of our hip hop heroes did not fare as well as a Snoop Dogg and did not have the type of legal representation that he had. And so we're going to talk about people that in fact have not fared so well.
It's interesting that we started with that kind of overview of the Snoop Dogg case, because of course Snoop Dogg was famously signed to death row and currently I think owns death row at this point in time that we're recording this. But it's going to lead us into kind of the first conversation, and actually in the list of artists that we're going to talk about, this is actually the oldest case. It's 30 years old this year. So To give a bit of background about this particular case happened in the Philadelphia metro area, so it's like outside of Philadelphia. And on January 2nd of 1996, three folks attempted to rob a PNC bank in Feltonville was actually where this took place. And an officer named Lorethia Baird responded to the silent alarm that the bank had tripped, and was subsequently shot and actually died. So she was murdered in the course of responding to that alarm. As it turns out, as the case unfolded, uh, there was three local Philly folks who uh, did that robbery. So it was a gentleman by the name of Mark Canty and two names that we know. And I'm going to actually mention their rapper names. One of the rapper names was Steady B, and the other rapper name was Cool C. All three of those individuals were convicted of this murder. And actually, Cool C is the only rapper to this day who is currently on death row serving time. And Steady B is in prison for life. So he has a life sentence in prison for in connection to the death of Officer Baird. And I remember, Sir Daniel, at the time, I'm curious to know how this played in Atlanta, but at the time here, this was a huge case because Cool C and Steady
He's a
B,
hometown hero.
yeah, hometown dudes, part of the Hilltop Hustlers crew, which included
Hmm.
Three Times Dope. In night between like 86 and 89, these brothers were like inescapable in terms of musical output, like legitimate classics amongst all of them.
Yep.
And this period of time was like it represented how much hip hop had turned, right? So by 1996, hip hop was in an entirely different place. So the kind of rapping that those brothers had been doing at the time was way out of fashion by then, which of
Hmm.
course impacted uh uh all of the things around their lives. So the fact that their lives turned in this way was just kind of like jarring.
Sure.
Um, but this whole situation ended up playing out kind of crazily in the Philly area at the time. But um definitely rest in peace to Officer Baird. And but I'm curious, Sir Daniel, how did this play in the Atlanta area? Did y'all hear about this as it was going on?
So I can't really speak to the larger Atlanta area because in '96 that was right before the boom.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Of after because we were going to have the Summer Olympics, and after that, that's when the influx of people outside of this and more people moving to the city happened. So, but I will say as a hip hop head, as somebody, who grew up hearing those, really revered and respected the Philly scene, a lot of Philly rappers, was a fan of Cool C and Steady B.
mm-hmm,
So the news, it was jarring to me. It was, it was just, as you said, it was indicative of the fact that for people from that era, the trying to continue making music or trying to continue living a lifestyle that the music had at one time had afforded them could not do that anymore because that's something you definitely do out of desperation
mm-hmm,
to fund your life
mm-hmm,
basically.
mm-hmm,
And this is not a judgment, it is basically what people commit these crimes do. They sometimes they just commit them to live, to
mm-hmm,
continue to create a lifestyle, to have a roof over their head, to maybe even to fund more music.
yeah.
Because at that time, if you don't have a major label, you got to come out of your own pocket to fund studio time and things like that. So I don't know if that has been explored as to have they been given the opportunity to speak to why they committed the crime. I can't really say, but I just know that it was very eye opening. It almost marked the end of an era for me, for someone who really enjoyed that period, like you said, between 86 and 89, where it was really about fun,
Mm-hmm.
and it just stripped away the gloss and
Yeah.
the charm and the happiness of, these are kids, and I'm a kid and I'm thinking, oh, these guys are robbers and killers, wow. And
Yeah.
not knowing the history, or the not even thinking about what it meant to be a hilltop hustler,
Yeah.
what it meant to really come from the streets.
Mm-hmm.
Not knowing any of that, it was very jarring and eye-opening, and kind of, it was one of those moments where you are definitely, your childhood is kind of, another piece of your childhood is chipped away,
Yep.
and you never look at life ever the same again after that. It's like, oh, this is real life, there are real life consequences. And then enter other, at this point, we're heavy into hustling music,
Mm-hmm.
and people openly talking about hugging the block, and gunplay, gun talk, all of these things are real things now. So it's really like demark the end of an era. You are no
Yes.
longer a child. This is no longer fun and games. This is real life, and these are real life consequences.
Absolutely, 100%. This particular case, the next case that we're going to talk about is incredibly gruesome. So I want to preface before we get into this that this case is uh, particularly gruesome. And we talked about last Halloween, actually, we did a show on horrorcore. Y'all should definitely go back and check out that show. But horrorcore, sometimes hard to say, is a subgenre of hip hop that leans more to the horror element of storytelling. So think the
Ghetto
Ghetto
Boys,
Boys and what they were doing, Grave
Grave Diggers.
Diggers, or artists like that. But there's another artist that was in that mix who is currently serving a life sentence. So Big Lurch was part of a rap group called the Cosmic Slop Shop. And they were LA based, but he is Texas born. But so, as with a lot of people from the South, they kind of make their way into other places, landed in LA. And Cosmic Slop Shop at the time, so this is in the early 2000s, were kind of making a bit of a name for themselves as in part of this horrorcore moment in time that was kind of emerging, right? Um, One of the other things about Big Lurch is he used substances, and one of those substances was PCP. And Sir Daniel, unfortunately, under the influence of PCP, um, Big Lurch attacked his roommate, a woman by the name of Tynesha Isais. I hope I'm saying Tynesha's name correctly, but attacked her in their LA apartment and through a stabbing. And so she died. But what turned this case into something gruesome, even more gruesome rather, is he had been discovered walking the streets kind of covered in blood, and they found that he had ingested pieces of her. So very gruesome case that took place. He was found guilty of first degree murder, torture, and aggravated mayhem. And the jury only spent about an hour of deliberation on this one. And
Wow.
so as a result, he was convicted of 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole. So he's currently in prison to this day and will be there for the rest of his life. But rest in peace to Tynesha Isais. But that is the story of Big Lurch and why he is currently in prison.
I don't think people, well, maybe the people don't remember, or not remember, but maybe there's an audience that doesn't know what PCP is or was.
Mhm.
PCP was like, I guess, the predecessor to The only thing I can compare it to was when bath salts.
Yeah.
PCP was a hallucinogen,
Hmm.
and a lot of people that took it would experience all kinds of crazy hallucinations, and clearly it drove people to do weird things, outlandish things, and this is an extreme case. It used to be called angel dust,
Hmm.
black acid, alien sex, all kinds of things that it was called back in the day. And yeah, it really was one of those things that you don't want to be around somebody that's on it.
It's interesting that you talk about angel dust, because when I reflect on growing up, and my uncles were very worldly, and so they would often talk about the different substances that existed, some that they would experience and some they wouldn't. Angel dust was one of the ones that they would be absolutely like, never ever ever do this. Like, it was like called out as like, now stay away from that, and because you'll lose your mind. It was kind of like the idea of it. But
Mm-hmm.
I remember that being, if there was a drug that you were going to stay away from in the 80s, that was one of the
That was
ones
it.
that I remember them talking about.
Because those gentlemen in that age group, they came back from Vietnam, right?
Hmm.
They came back
Exactly.
from the war, and a lot of them were used substances to take their
Hmm.
mind off the things that they saw over there. And okay, so Gen Zers out there that might be watching this, you probably have seen this was floating on Instagram. I do remember in TikTok, somebody had taken a clip of one of those after school specials
Hmm.
that I believe it was Helen Hunt was starring as a high school student,
Hmm.
and she and her boyfriend were in one of the classrooms, and he was trying to get her to try this angel dust,
Hmm.
and she tried it the one time she tried it, and it just made her go crazy, and she jumped out of the window, and she didn't even die when she jumped out of the window. She was just
Hmm.
so strung out that she had glass all over her. Y'all have seen that clip floating around on the internets, definitely,
Hmm.
for sure. But that is an extreme example of what PCP angel dust did to people back then, for sure.
Yeah. The next case that we are going to talk about is actually a more recent case, but it involves a legendary rapper that was part of a legendary rap crew. So, Kid Creole, that's KIDD Creole, is one of the founding members of Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. So, we don't need to explain how significant Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five was as a group, and how it changed hip hop. But we have to remember that rappers from particularly that part of the golden era, many of them, the riches we kind of see rappers experience today, when we look back on that era, that's just not true. Black Thought has this famous line, Cool Herc never received a royalty check, right?
Hmm.
So these like people who are foundational don't experience the same riches as like what we would see like a Jay-Z or a Nas, right?
Correct.
So, Kid Creole, um, this happened in 2017. He was convicted of fatally stabbing a man experiencing homelessness in New York. He had been on his way to work at a copy shop. He worked overnight. And as the story unfolded, it kind of started as there was an argument. The way I remember the story kind of unfolding is that there was this argument. It was self-defense, stabbed the man, story ends, da da da. But as the story kind of unfolded, one of the things that came up was this may have been like a gay panic sort of situation where Kid Creole felt like this person had been coming on to him. Neither here nor there. At the end of the day, the jury convicted Kid Creole in 2022. So this is what, 5 years later. of first-degree manslaughter. He is currently serving 16 years in prison. And Yeah, another tragic story. But yeah, Kid Creole is currently serving 16 years for first degree manslaughter for the fatal stabbing of a homeless gentleman in New York.
I find it interesting, these stories, except for Snoop and the final story that we're going to speak of. There are these people in the middle that, because there was a lull or a lag in their careers,
Mm,
or the career was just non-existent, makes you wonder, like, what fleeting fame can do to a person. And
mhm.
fleeting fame in of itself is a drug, right?
Yeah.
And then when you get a taste of it, you want more. And then if you can't live up to this being in the spotlight, which includes having to portray a certain lifestyle, it kind of opens you up to these situations.
Hmm.
This gentleman is having to work a 9 to 5, an overnight
Hmm.
job, and was placed in this situation where he came across this individual that
Hmm.
he had the incident with. Not saying that things like this can't happen to any of us, but I just find it interesting that is the kind of the unifying factor
Yeah.
in these cases. And but like I said at the beginning, not for everybody. There are
Yeah.
some people who kind of have it good. And well, let's take Snoop for instance.
Hmm.
Because of the fame, who knows, the like what did Big say, the cheddar breed jealousy.
Hmm.
It kind of brings different eyes on you and brings
Yeah.
attention to you that you didn't necessarily have to worry about before. And now you have to protect yourself. And sometimes, and in Snoop's case, that's what it led to. And the jury found that to be the case, that it was self-defense.
Yeah.
So this thing called fame, guys and girls, it's not what it's cracked up to be. And especially now in this attention currency world that we live in, it can it can really lead people to do some diabolical and almost demonic things. And that's what this next case is going to highlight.
Yeah, so this is actually an ongoing
Yeah.
case. Um it's interesting as we jump into this. We've talked about rappers up to this point, and with these newer artists, it's sometimes hard to categorize them. Like, are you a
Yeah.
rapper? Are you a singer? What are you doing? But anyway, the case that we are going to talk about, that all of you have probably heard about by now, but if you have not, there is a singer, rapper, songwriter named David who is currently in jail. He is awaiting trial for the murder of a girl that he was allegedly murdered, but allegedly was also in a relationship with. This story is disturbing. All of these stories are disturbing in their own ways, and this one definitely checks that box as one of a particularly disturbing case. And this artist is newer and way younger than
Yes.
any of the folks that we have talked about so far. He's quite a young man. And but yes, currently this is underway. So the in California. Um so Daniel, did you know anything about David as an artist before all of this stuff came to light?
Not at all. As you said, the uncategorized type of music that he was doing just wasn't for me.
Mhm.
So he never popped up on my radar. I'm way out of the demographic for a lot of these new artists and the algorithms that they are a part of. But unfortunately, because his life has taken this turn, now all it has all of our attention.
Yeah.
And now we're very people are holding a magnifying glass to anyone that is carrying on any kind of relationship. Anyone that's an adult is
Mm-hmm.
having any kind of relationships with people that are way outside of their age range.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're an adult, anybody that's like significantly lower or has the word teen in their age,
Mm-hmm.
it brings up a lot of suspicion. So, and the way people are moving, you just really have to they really have to watch themselves. And because everybody has a heightened sense of awareness of how celebrities in particular seem to move in a different world where they feel like the rules don't apply to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like now more than ever, the public and law enforcement is scrutinizing every and anybody that considers themselves a celebrity, and they really have to move with some serious caution these days.
Yeah, and to underscore that a bit too, like I think what's unique about the other cases that we've talked about exist outside of the realm of like social media for the most part, right?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas this David case is interesting because there's a huge digital footprint
Mm-hmm.
for the alleged relationship. I know we keep
That's
saying
right.
alleged, but right now we have to say that because this brother has not been convicted of anything. But there's a lot of a footprint of that the alleged relationship. There was a lot of interaction with like the Discord universe. Apparently David had this very active Discord server and would talk to his folks there because he was also the way he got started was like doing gaming videos, but the way he started
Streaming.
making music was he would like make his own music to put in the gaming videos so he wouldn't get flagged and stuff like that. Saying all that to say is it's just like really interesting um because there's this disconnect. I consider it a disconnect that kind of comes with living life in like these boxes, these digital boxes, right?
Yeah.
You're not actually interacting with people. So there's that disconnect that happens. But then there's also this hyper sharing of everything that's kind of happening in your life with these people that don't really exist to you as like a physical presence. It's all very interesting to me that we're kind of at that place right now where it's like, you know, are y'all real folks out there in the world? Are you a bot? Are you an AI bot? But yeah, this more to come on this David case. This is becoming such a tabloid. TMZ is always on it with
That's
something
right.
as it relates to this. And more importantly, pray for the family. This was a little girl. This
Yeah.
was a little girl.
I don't
And I
even think she was 15. I think she was 14.
Yeah, I think she was 14. I
It's a
have to
child,
Yeah.
literally a child. Which which brings up another conversation about, I think, with the coming of the upcoming Usher and Chris Brown. Not,
Mm.
and they have nothing to do with this case at all. But they have a joint tour that's coming up, and the question has come up like with, are you allowing your teens and tweens to go to this show by themselves?
No.
That's a conversation that is a conversation that's coming up. Like, j- buy them the tickets and drop them off. It's happening a lot more than we realize. But that's a whole nother
Yeah.
conversation.
Oh, that is so interesting. I think we do have to jump into so definitely maybe that's a live. So for those of you that don't know who listen to our show regularly, we go live most every Thursday at 8 p.m. On YouTube and Instagram. So you should subscribe to us on YouTube. That'll help us get the numbers up there. And you should also subscribe to us on Instagram. We would appreciate it. Thank y'all so much for tuning in for this episode of Q Points. If you can see our faces and hear our voices, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Share the show with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you enjoy Q Points, chances are they will enjoy Q Points as well. Visit our website at qpoints.com. Become a member. It helps us to keep the lights on here at Q Points Land. Shop our store at store.qpoints.com. And go ahead and make sure that you check us out on Substack where we have some additional content. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all.
That's right. It's like I always say, in this life, you have a choice. You can either pick up the needle or you can let the record play. I am DJ Sir Daniel.
My name is J Ray, y'all.
And this is Q Points Podcast, dropping the needle on Black music history. We will see you on the next go round. Peace.
Peace, y'all.